well to Research Methods, the Year 13 section. We are very close to finishing now. So we're looking today at psychological investigations and how we lay out a journal paper. Within that, well, separately, but one thing we do need to cover is how we tackle those design a study questions. Now, they are 12 marks in paper 2, and they used to come up every year, but didn't come up last year, which says to me that potentially this year there could be a 12-mark question in there. So we'll have a look at how to tackle them. In the next couple of sessions, we'll be finishing off with features of science, and that's our final bit of research methods. Everything is on the VLE under Psychology Year 12 closure work, so all the lessons are there, all the resources are there for you to go back over summer. And like I said, research methods, because it's 30% and nothing's being taken out of the 3 papers, I would be guiding some of my revision to that, because that is what's holding most of the marks. So let's start then. 6 questions to refresh yourself and to guide your revision. That's why they're there. So we've got, how do we improve the validity? We've looked at that last time. 3 types of conformity, state-dependent forgetting, Hazan and Shaver, and then emotional in OCD. So what can you remember? Schema is a mental framework, a little shortcut of how we tackle certain situations, how we act, and they give us a prerequisite for the future. We improve validity, we have a control group in there, standardized procedures, maybe we use a single or a double blind. 3 types, compliance is our lowest level of conformity, all the way up to internalization, which is our highest level. Carter and Cassidy support state dependence. They were on antihistamine when they learnt stuff, and then when they recalled it was better. Hazan and Shaver was the love quiz in attachment. Secure people have better and longer lasting relationships, more trusting, avoidant, a fear of intimacy, and resistant, sort of quite clingy. And then lastly, an emotional characteristic is how we feel. So anxiety, depression, or guilt in OCD. Behaviour is how we act, and cognitive is what we think. Okay, what I've uploaded to, it's not on Show My Homework, but it's on VLE, are some of the original journals for Milgram, for Zimbardo, so the actual papers that were written for the experiment. They are all available on Google Scholar. If you type that in, you can see them all. And it just helps you to have an understanding of a structure of a journal. So when you come to write a dissertation, if you go to uni, you're going to have 10,000 words, but it's not just going to be 10,000 words sprawled out on a Word document. The formatting is really specific, and that's what we're going to have a look at today. So how do we report psychological investigations? This was very new, brought in the 2015 spec. I think it's to get students ready for university and how they are going to be forced into this structure, basically. So we know it's really important when it comes to writing these reports because they're accessible for everyone to see. They're on Google Scholar. You just have to Google it and it's there. The government may use it, other psychologists, obviously students in their dissertations. It has to be clear, it has to be accurate, and it has to be informative, not waffly, not using floaty words, but really specific. What happens is before any journal is published, like you looked at before, they have to be peer reviewed. So an expert has to come in, they'll check if it all fits the guidelines, if it's useful and accurate before anything gets published. There's loads of great journals out there. Journal of Clinical Psychology, Journal of Social and Personality. There's a lot that has some really, really interesting articles in. So let's start then. First thing, and this will be your godsend if you go to uni, is the abstract. So a journal is about 50, 60 pages, could be more than that. And if your essay requires you to look up individual differences and you type that into Google Scholar, you get a paper that's about 70 pages long. You're not going to have the time to physically read those 70 pages and 25 other journals. Because I think it's about 25 to 30 journals is what they want in an essay. So the abstract becomes the godsend. It's a little summary of the study, has the aims in there, the hypotheses, results, the conclusions, the method. It's everything packed into about 250 to 400 words long. And I would say that whenever you do any essays at uni, read the abstract, take out what you need, and then only really read the rest of the paper if you want a little bit more information on gender differences in the results, or if you want to steal some of the articles from their introduction, then that's when you need to read all of it, or most of it. The introduction is quite meaty, and this is basically where you are discussing previous research in that field. So for me, my dissertation was on curiosity in young children. Is it innate or is it made? Is it nurtured? So my introduction, I had to reference loads of previous research on what they had found, then say, okay, well, I'm doing this because I found a gap. This is what they haven't researched. Or I'm going to look at how important it is in girls or between 7 to 11. So you highlight a gap and outline your rationale, so why you've done it and how you're going to do it. You then bring in your hypotheses. So based on the previous research, this is what I'm going to do. It starts quite broad and then narrows down into your specific research. That's quite bulky. In the methods section then is a detailed description of what the researchers did, not the participants, the researchers. So that is the reason it has to be so bulked is because people could replicate it. So my research was a replication of somebody else's, so I had to full on read all of their paper in order to replicate it properly. And in the methods section, you've got what design they've used, who the participants were, and why. There's always a justification. Was it in a lab? Did they have a certain questionnaire? What did that questionnaire look like? And the procedure is in there. And the difference between method and procedure is the method is what the researchers did, and the procedure is what the participants did. So you have to put in your procedure your standardized instructions. This is what I gave the participants to do, and this is how they did it. Ethics need to be in there as well. So you gave them informed consent. You told them their results could be confidential, names anonymous, blah, 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 blah. So how you avoided certain issues or dealt with them. In the results section then, you have a load of tables, basically. Descriptive statistics, your mean, your standard deviations in there. Any graphs that you use to show anything pictorially. And if you use any inferential tests, which you would have done. So I ran on Mann-Whitney, and this is what it came up with, showing that it's significant. I accepted my alternative and rejected the null, something like that. If you're doing observation, you put in there your behavioural categories. So a table of exactly what the measures were. Second to last section is your discussion section. And this is a bit of a critique of yourself. So you have to interpret the results. So from what we found, the conclusions that we can make are blah, 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 blah. And you put in there, okay, implications of this research. It could be used here, here, and here. And this is the real world applications. But you also have to go back to your intro and say, okay, my research supported what X, Y, and Z have found, or completely went against it. My methodology was great, but it could have been improved by potentially using a unstructured interview or a covert observation. So you kind of critique yourself. How would you improve it? And then are there any implications for theory and any possible real life applications? Final section then, and the bane of every student's life, is the reference section. Now, I think you want about 25 to 30 references in an essay. In your dissertation, it's ridiculous. They want hundreds from you, lots and lots, because you've got 10,000 words, so you're going to be referencing a lot of people. So you have to give credit to everybody who you have mentioned in your essay or dissertation, whether that's books or TV shows. Everything has to be referenced a certain way. So if it's not done properly, and I knew someone at uni that had this, you can be done for plagiarism. They run it through a checker. You're allowed like 15% of, because that's your references. But if you've copied and pasted someone else's work, then they'll fail you on the spot, pretty much. You won't pass. So you may be asked to write a reference in the exam. This came up a couple of years ago. It was only worth 2 marks, but everybody failed pretty much from the examiner's report. So this is how it looks like. So you need to have the author, the date, title of the book in italics, place of publication, and the publisher. So a little something like that. That's for a book. For a journal, it's a lot more detailed, but the exam board just want you to know how to reference a book, because they could give you a question like the one in red here. This was the one that came up. So this was her book, and write the full reference as it should appear in the reference section. Now that's only 2 marks, but those 2 marks could be the difference between helping you between a C and a B, or a B or an A, or an A and A star. So those smaller questions are really vital. So you can have a go at a couple of those questions there. This section is really small. I have put it on Show My Homework as well, from the Pink Haired Girl book. It's just 1 page. You can go refresh yourself on. And that's that for reporting investigations. The only things they could ask you to do is explain what's an abstract, explain the importance of the discussion section, or write a reference. So there's not many questions they can ask you around that. This is the meatier bit in research methods, which is about you having to design your own study and kind of think for yourself. So it's on paper 2. It's usually at the end, 12 marks long always, and always laid out like this. So you'll have 4 bullet points that they want you to talk about. So here, design an observational study to investigate how people spend their time at the gym. In your answer, you'll be awarded credit for providing details of. Do not write about anything else except those 4 bullet points, because you'll get no credit. So all they want you to talk about is the type of observation you would use and why. So if you split this into marks, 12 divided by 4, how many marks per each? You got 3 marks. So you want to have a good justification for each of them. Operationalize behavioural categories. So here, I would draw out a table. These are my behavioural categories that I'm going to use. Use of time and or event sampling. So why are you going to count every event, or why are you going to do it in time increments? Then how reliability of the data could be assessed. Now, it's an observation. So your first port of call is to think, right, how am I going to assess the reliability of an observation? I'm going to have an inter-observer. I'm going to have more than one person come in and observe what I'm doing. Okay. Now, these questions are usually performed semi-well because students are so fixed on having something written in front of them that when they're asked to design something themselves and come out of their comfort zone, that's where they lose on the marks. Or they start going off on a tangent and talking about hypotheses when they don't need to. So, what the mark scheme wants you to include for this, so type of observation, you want to bring in covert, overt, and why, like we've said. What are going to be your categories and why? Why are you going to use event or time? And then how are you going to assess it? It's going to be inter-observer. Mark scheme looks like this. So they've split it into AO2, AO3. It would be 6 marks for AO3 because of the justification. And the AO2 is because you're applying it to a scenario, so the observational design. So in this top band, all 4 presented, specific specialist terminology used, and just really well detailed and explained. I'm pretty sure I've said this already. Yeah, so how I would lay it out is for each of these bullet points, I would have as a little subheading and then write each underneath. So I think I have an example. Yeah. So for the type of observation, this would be my little subheading. And then you want to go as detailed as possible. So I'm going to do a covert, naturalistic, non-participant. So remember, we've got all those types of observation, but I'm going to make sure that I bring in as much detail as possible. It's good because I could pose as a member of the gym staff. Observer bias is minimized. It's naturalistic because we're in a gym, people feel comfortable there, high external validity. So it's always saying this means that, therefore, going as far with it as possible. These are going to be my categories. I'd actually draw out the table, the behaviour that I'm looking at and the total. So I'm going to use a range of them. What are they doing in the gym? Record that every 5 minutes. It's going to be, wait, where are we here? Have I said? Yeah. Use of time and events. I'm going to use time sampling. I'm going to record the behaviour every 5 minutes and see how we're getting on. It's appropriate, gives us a snapshot of a predetermined intervals. And then I'll assess it by having 2 observers. So I'll make sure that somebody else checks my behavioural categories, that they are valid. Run a Spearman's row, because whenever you say inter-observer, you've got to have 0.8. It's not great, remember. I'll know that's a high level. A quick quiz for you to have a go at. Method section includes let's just leave that actually. So what I think you should have a go at is planning one of these questions. If you go on the AQA website and go on any past paper, there should be 12 markers in there you can have a go at with the mark scheme as well. Good practice. And I think in that workbook, there are a few in there too, that's also on the BLE. So this is something a little bit different. Looking at the fluency in spoken communication, we've got the method specified and observation. We're examining sex differences in non-verbal behaviour, and what they're doing is giving a presentation. So they want you to give the task, what you're going to get them to do, the behaviour categories, so how you draw out the table, how they're going to be recorded, how is reliability going to be established, and any ethics that you might need to consider. So I have put some hints and tips here for each of the different categories. What you might want to have a go at for your own practice, because 12 marks is a hell of a lot in paper 2, is actually physically doing it. And there's another one there you can have a go at too. The mark scheme is on there, but try not to use the mark scheme. See what you can do and then compare it, so you can sort of test yourself against the mark scheme. Okie dokie. So those 12 mark questions, it's really hard to do virtually, because I think the best thing you could do is have a go. Send it to me and then I can give you some feedback, or run a specific session where I have loads of different questions on it. And I'll talk through how I would answer each of them. But give them a go and then let me know how you get on.